You've worked hard. You've tried to do the right things, yet somehow, there's still this emptiness in your bank account, yes, but also in your chest when you lie down at night. You might tell yourself it's just bad timing or bad luck, but deep down, you sense there's something else going on. What if the scarcity you experience on the outside is just a mirror of something happening within? Not because you're broken or cursed, but because no one ever taught you that wealth, true wealth, begins with how you see yourself. This isn't about manifesting abundance through affirmations alone. It's about recognizing the quiet ways you've been rejecting your own worth. You've been so busy trying to fix what's outside that you haven't noticed what's happening inside. The exhaustion isn't just physical. The poverty isn't just financial. There's a spiritual bankruptcy that happens when you spend years disconnected from your own essence, your own truth, your own worthiness. And this disconnection, it's not your fault. You were taught to look outward for validation, to measure your value by external markers, to believe that your worth was something you had to earn rather than something you inherently possess. But now, it's costing you everything. The bills pile up not just because of circumstances, but because when you don't value yourself, you make decisions from that place of unworthiness. You accept less. You settle for crumbs. You stay in situations that drain you because you don't believe you deserve better. The spiritual emptiness you feel isn't because you're not doing enough meditation or prayer. It's because you've abandoned yourself in 1,000 small ways, day after day, year after year, and your soul is weary from being ignored. There's a kind of poverty that has nothing to do with money. It's the poverty of never feeling good enough. It's waking up already defeated, carrying shame like a second skin, believing that struggle is just your destiny. This inner drought makes everything harder, not because the world is against you, but because you're working against yourself. When you're disconnected from your own value, every decision becomes strained. You undercharge for your work because you don't believe you deserve more. You tolerate situations that drain you because you think it's all you can get. You sabotage opportunities before they even arrive because some part of you is convinced you'll mess it up anyway. This isn't weakness. This is what happens when you've spent years absorbing messages that told you that you weren't quite right, not smart enough, not polished enough, not worthy of ease. Those messages became the voice in your head, and that voice has been quietly bankrupting you from the inside out. Your spiritual emptiness isn't separate from your financial struggles. They're intimately connected. When you feel worthless inside, you create worthless conditions outside, not consciously, not intentionally, but inevitably. Because how you see yourself becomes how you allow yourself to be treated, how much you charge, how much you save, how much you invest in your own growth. You've been taught that humility means making yourself small. That being spiritual means not caring about money. That being good means always putting yourself last. So you've spent years depleting yourself in the name of virtue, wondering why you feel so empty. The drought inside you affects everything. Your relationships lack depth because you can't be authentic when you don't value your own truth. Your work lacks fulfillment because you're performing rather than creating. Your finances lack stability because you're making decisions from fear rather than worth. This inner poverty whispers that you're an imposter, that you're not really talented or capable, that any success you have is just luck or timing. It tells you to play small, stay quiet, not rock the boat. It convinces you that wanting more is greedy, that rest is laziness, that self-care is selfish. And you've listened to that voice for so long that you don't even recognize it anymore. It's just become your normal. The constant self-criticism, the endless comparison, the belief that you have to suffer to be worthy. This is the drought. And it's killing everything that could bloom in your life. Every time you ignore your intuition to please someone else, you lose a little spiritual currency. Every time you stay silent when you should speak, you create a debt within yourself. Every time you push past exhaustion because rest feels like laziness, you withdraw from your own reserves without ever making a deposit. This is the cycle that keeps you broke, not the economy, not your circumstances, though those matter, but the constant betrayal of your own needs, your own truth, your own boundaries. You've been taught that sacrifice is noble, that suffering builds character, that ease is something you have to earn through pain. So you give and give until there's nothing left. Then you wonder why abundance feels so foreign. You can't receive what you won't allow yourself to have. And somewhere along the way, you decided that peace, rest, and prosperity were for other people. Not because you're humble, but because you're afraid. You betray yourself when you stay in the job that's crushing your spirit because you're afraid of the unknown. You betray yourself when you dim your light to make others comfortable. You betray yourself when you spend money on things you don't need to fill the void created by ignoring what you actually need. This cycle is exhausting. You're constantly monitoring everyone else's feelings, anticipating their needs, managing their reaction, while your own inner world goes unattended. You've become a stranger to yourself. You don't even know what you truly want anymore because you've spent so long asking what everyone else wants. The financial cost of this self-betrayal is real. You stay in underpaying situations. You don't negotiate. You accept whatever is offered because asking for more feels uncomfortable. You let people take advantage of your generosity because saying no feels mean. You spend on others while neglecting your own needs because that's what you think love looks like. But this isn't love. This is self-abandonment. And it's creating the very scarcity you're trying to avoid. Because when you constantly betray yourself, you send a message to the universe, to your subconscious, and to every part of your being. I'm not important. My needs don't matter. I'm not worth protecting. You wake up one day and realize you don't recognize your own life. The choices you've made, the relationships you're in, the work you're doing, none of it feels like you. Because it isn't you. It's the version of you that learned to survive by disappearing. This betrayal creates a poverty of spirit that no amount of money can fix. You could win the lottery tomorrow and still feel empty, because the emptiness isn't about what you have. It's about what you've lost. Connection to yourself, trust in your own wisdom, belief in your inherent worth. Breaking this cycle requires something radical, choosing yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way. Treating your needs as legitimate, honoring your boundaries as holy, listening to your intuition as guidance. This feels terrifying at first because you've been taught that putting yourself first is wrong. But you're not putting yourself first. You're just finally including yourself in the equation. Fear is expensive. It costs you opportunities, relationships, and years of your life. The fear of being seen as greedy keeps you small. The fear of outgrowing your family or friends keeps you stuck. The fear of success, yes, that's real, keeps you safe in familiar suffering because at least you know how to survive there. What you don't realize is that this fear isn't protecting you. It's imprisoning you. It masquerades as practicality, as realism, as humility. But really, it's just terror dressed up in wisdom's clothing. And it's keeping you from the very things you pray for. Financial struggle becomes a comfort zone when it's all you've known. Spiritual emptiness becomes familiar when you've never been shown what true connection feels like. So you stay broke, not because you want to, but because growth means stepping into the unknown, and the unknown feels like danger. Let's talk about what you're really afraid of. These fears run deep because they're connected to survival. At some point, you learned that being too much, wanting too much, or having too much was dangerous. Maybe you watched someone in your family be criticized for their success. Maybe you were shamed for wanting things as a child. Maybe you absorbed the message that good people struggle and only bad people prosper. Now these fears operate in the background, making decisions for you before you're even conscious of the choice. They tell you which opportunities to pursue and which to avoid. They determine how much you charge, how much you save, how much you allow yourself to receive. They keep you locked in patterns that feel safe even when they're slowly destroying you. The fear of failure is obvious, but the fear of success is insidious. Because success means change, and change means losing the identity you've built around struggle. Who would you be if you weren't the one always figuring it out, always hustling, always barely making it? The familiar version of yourself, even if she's exhausted, feels safer than the unknown version who actually thrives. This fear keeps you spiritually broke too. You're afraid to trust your own guidance because what if you're wrong? You're afraid to set boundaries because what if people leave? You're afraid to speak your truth because what if you're rejected? So you stay silent, compliant, small, and wonder why you feel so disconnected from your own soul. Breaking free from this fear doesn't mean becoming fearless. It means recognizing that staying small is costing you more than taking the risk ever could. The pain of remaining stuck eventually outweighs the fear of change, and that's when transformation becomes possible. You carry stories that were never yours to begin with. Stories about money being the root of evil, about spiritual people needing to be poor, about wealth corrupting the pure. Stories about your family's struggles being your inheritance, about your past mistakes defining your future. These narratives run in the background of your life like programs you never chose to install. They make decisions for you. They limit you before you even try. They tell you what's possible based on what's already happened, not on what could be. And the most dangerous part? You believe them so deeply that you don't even recognize them as stories. You think they're just truth. But here's what changes everything. Stories can be rewritten, not through denial or forced positivity, but through honest examination. When you pull these beliefs into the light and ask, is this actually true? Or is this just what I was taught? You begin to see the cracks. And through those cracks, new possibilities emerge. Consider the story you carry about money. Where did it come from? Was it your grandmother saying rich people are greedy? Your parents fighting about bills and teaching you that money brings stress? Was it religious teachings that equated poverty with purity? These weren't neutral lessons. They shaped how you see prosperity, what you believe you deserve, how much you allow yourself to have, or the story about your capabilities. Maybe you were told you weren't good with numbers, so now you avoid anything financial. Maybe you were called too sensitive, so you learned to suppress your intuition. Maybe you were compared to a sibling who was the smart one, so you decided you were something else, less than, other than, not quite enough. These stories become the lens through which you see everything. They filter opportunities, relationships, possibilities. They tell you what to notice and what to ignore. They create a reality that confirms what you already believe, making the story feel more true, more permanent, more inevitable. You tell yourself you're just being realistic when you say you're not good with money, but that's not realism. It's a story you've rehearsed so many times you've forgotten it's a story. The truth is, you haven't been taught how to be good with money, and you're operating from old programming that keeps you in scarcity. The story about spiritual people being poor is particularly damaging. It creates a false choice. You can be good or you can be prosperous, but not both. You can be enlightened or you can be financially stable, but not both. This split keeps you broke and makes you feel virtuous about it, like your struggle is proof of your spiritual depth. But look at what that story costs you. It keeps you dependent. It keeps you stressed. It keeps you from having the resources to actually help others or create the impact you want to make in the world. Poverty doesn't make you more spiritual. It just makes you more worried about survival and less available for everything else. Then there are the family stories, the ones about how we've always struggled, or money doesn't grow on trees, or we're not the lucky ones. These stories feel like loyalty. Changing them feels like betrayal. So you stay poor to stay connected, not realizing that your family would likely want better for you if they understood the cost. Your personal story matters too, the one you tell about your failures, your limitations, your wounds. Maybe you made bad financial decisions in the past, so now you've decided you can't be trusted with money. Maybe you failed at something, so now you've decided you're a failure. Maybe you were hurt, so now you've decided you're broken. But past events are just events. They're not verdicts. You've been using them as evidence of your limitations when they could just as easily be evidence of your resilience, your learning, your growth. The story you're telling determines which reality you're creating. Rewriting these stories doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen, or forcing yourself to believe something that feels false. It means questioning the conclusions you drew, the meaning you made, the identity you built around those experiences. It means asking, what else could be true? What if money is just a tool, neutral until you decide what to do with it? What if spiritual depth and financial stability can coexist? What if your family's patterns don't have to be your patterns? What if your past mistakes were just lessons, not life sentences? What if you're not broken, just breaking free? There's a quiet rebellion in admitting you want more. Not from greed, but from knowing you're meant for something beyond survival. Wanting ease doesn't make you entitled. Wanting financial stability doesn't make you materialistic. Wanting spiritual fullness doesn't make you selfish. Yet guilt appears the moment you dare desire. So you minimize your dreams, apologize for your ambitions, shrink to make others comfortable. And in doing so, you starve yourself. The truth: your expansion doesn't take from anyone else. Your healing doesn't diminish another's light. There's no virtue in staying broken to comfort broken people. The most compassionate thing you can do is become whole, because whole people create more wholeness. Wanting more has been weaponized against you. But there's a difference between toxic striving and sacred desire. Toxic striving comes from inadequacy, trying to prove your worth. Sacred desire comes from recognizing your worth and allowing it to expand. Gratitude and desire aren't opposites. You can be deeply thankful while knowing you're meant for more. Real gratitude creates the energy that allows more to come. False gratitude, which is really resignation, keeps you stuck. The courage to want more means admitting your current life isn't satisfying you. Pretending you're satisfied creates resentment, depression, and dullness. Everyone can see even when you're smiling. Wanting more financially means admitting money matters, that you want security, comfort, options. There's nothing wrong with this. Money doesn't make you less spiritual. It resources you to do what you're here for. But wanting requires vulnerability. When you admit what you want, you risk not getting it. So you've learned to kill desires before they form, to talk yourself out of dreams before they disappoint you. This protective mechanism costs you your life force. Desire is energy. It moves you forward, creates momentum, gives life meaning. When you shut down desire, you become a ghost wondering why nothing feels exciting anymore. The courage to want more isn't about greed. It's about honesty, about trusting that your heart's desires were placed there to guide you, not torture you. At some point, the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. That's when you finally give yourself permission to want more. Abundance begins when you stop begging for crumbs and recognize your inherent value. Not value you must prove, value that exists simply because you're here. When you operate from self-worth, you make different choices. You charge what you're worth. You walk away from what depletes you. You invest in yourself without guilt. You understand you're not taking too much space. You've been compressed into too little. This shift happens through consistently choosing yourself in small, brave ways. Asking, what would someone who valued themselves do here? Then doing that, even when uncomfortable. Self-worth isn't built from scratch, it's uncovered. It was always there beneath conditioning, criticism, and comparison. You were born with inherent worth. The world taught you to doubt it. Now you remember what you knew before you were taught to forget. The shift changes how you see money. In scarcity, money determines your value. In self-worth, money flows in response to what you offer, separate from your inherent worthiness. This doesn't mean money magically appears. It means you stop making desperate decisions, accepting less because you fear nothing else will come, holding so tightly you block the flow. Spiritually, this shift is profound. Scarcity makes life feel like competition. Self-worth lets you celebrate others because their abundance doesn't threaten yours. In relationships, scarcity creates people-pleasing and over-giving to earn love. Self-worth creates authenticity, giving from overflow, and boundaries that keep relationships healthy. The practice is daily. Every morning you choose, operate from not enoughness or from the truth of your inherent value. Some days you'll forget. That's not failure. It's being human. You'll know it's happening when rest stops feeling like laziness and starts feeling like self-respect. When good things happen and you think, of course, instead of, I don't deserve this. The shift isn't about becoming someone new. It's returning to who you've always been beneath fear and conditioning. True abundance isn't having more money. It's feeling inherently enough, regardless of circumstances. You've been taught giving is spiritual and receiving is selfish. So you give until you collapse, then resent when no one gives back. You've made martyrdom your identity and wonder why you feel empty. Learning to receive is radical healing. It means believing you're worthy of support, rest, and good things without suffering first. It means opening your hands instead of clenching fists. Receiving is active self-respect. It's saying yes to opportunities, accepting kindness without immediately repaying it, letting yourself be held instead of always holding others. When someone compliments you, do you deflect it? That's rejecting receiving. You're saying, "I don't trust your judgment," or "I'm not worthy." This blocks intimacy. Your relationship with receiving determines how much abundance can land in your life. Opportunities can come constantly, but if you won't receive them, they pass right through you. The wound often comes from childhood. Maybe receiving came with strings attached, or your needs felt too much, so you learned to want less, take up less space. Healing means separating past from present. Some people genuinely want to give because they care. Receiving their gifts honors them as much as it nourishes you. Practice saying, "Thank you," and stopping there. Not, "Thank you," but just, "Thank you." Let the gift land. Receiving is deeply connected to self-worth. When you believe you're worthy, receiving feels natural. Every time you practice receiving, you reinforce your worth. The universe is constantly trying to give you love, opportunities, resources, beauty, connection. But your hands are full, clutching control, protecting yourself, doing it all alone. To receive, you must open your hands. Start small. Receive the compliment, the help, the moment of beauty. Practice, letting good things land without deflection. Watch how this simple practice changes everything. Being spiritual doesn't mean ignoring bills. Being practical doesn't mean abandoning your soul. The separation is the lie that's kept you broke in both realms. Real transformation happens when you stop waiting for the universe to do everything while you meditate, and stop grinding to dust while ignoring your spirit's whispers. It's integration. Listening deeply, then moving intentionally. The magic lives in understanding spirit and money were never separate. Your energy affects decisions. Decisions affect reality. Reality reflects what you believe you deserve. Neither extreme works. You need to meditate and make a budget. Trust intuition and create a business plan. Pray and send the invoice. Believe in abundance and check your bank account. Integration means bringing consciousness to practical matters. Asking before purchases, "Am I buying from abundance or lack?" It's bringing awareness to money instead of avoiding it. It also means bringing practicality to spiritual matters. Not just visualizing abundance, also applying for the job. Not just setting intentions, also taking action. You'll know you're integrating when you stop seeing money as dirty or spiritual practice as impractical. When meditation makes you more effective, not more passive. When intuition and strategy work together instead of fighting. This integration creates sustainable abundance. Because spirituality without practicality is fantasy. Practicality without spirituality is empty productivity. Together, they create a life that's meaningful and functional, inspired and organized, connected and successful. When you integrate spirit and practicality, you stop feeling torn. You become whole. And from that wholeness, everything you've been seeking becomes possible. Here you are, at the edge of new understanding. The real reason you're still broke, spiritually and financially, is operating from an old story that no longer serves you. But now you see it. And seeing changes everything. Not instantly, not magically, but truthfully. The work ahead isn't about perfection. It's about daily, messy, imperfect practice of choosing yourself. You're not broken. You never were. You were taught to live as if you were. Now you get to unlearn that. Reclaim your worth. Remember that prosperity isn't something you chase. It's something you become when you stop abandoning yourself. This awakening is precious. Don't let it fade into just another inspiration that disappears by tomorrow. This is the crack in the old pattern. This is where light gets in. The path won't always be comfortable. Old patterns will feel safer. Staying small will feel easier. That's normal. Growth requires outgrowing what you've known. But you're ready. You wouldn't be here, feeling this stirring, if you weren't. Some part of you knows it's time. Some part is tired of struggle, scarcity, disconnection. Some part is ready to live differently. Start making different choices today. Small ones, brave ones, choices that honor your worth, that open you to receiving, that integrate spiritual truth with practical action. Each small choice sends a message. You're done playing small, done betraying yourself to keep others comfortable, done waiting for permission to want more, be more, have more. The transformation isn't becoming someone else. It's returning to who you've always been beneath conditioning, uncovering the worth that was always there. You were born worthy, born deserving of love, abundance, peace, joy. Somewhere along the way, you learned to doubt that. Now you get to unlearn those lies. As you shift internally, external reality will reflect it. You'll notice opportunities you'd have missed, make decisions that serve you, create boundaries protecting your energy, receive what's offered instead of deflecting it. The journey won't be linear. There will be setbacks, doubts, moments of forgetting. That's being human. The practice is remembering again, choosing again, returning to your worth until it becomes natural as breathing. You're capable of this transformation. You wouldn't feel this pull if it wasn't already alive inside you. Trust that. Trust the stirring in your soul. Trust the discomfort of growth. This is your invitation. Return to who you've always been beneath fear and conditioning. Stand in your full value without apology. Create from wholeness instead of lack. You've spent enough years broke in both realms. You've proven your resilience. Now it's time to prove you can thrive, that you can live from abundance instead of just survive through scarcity. The real reason you've been broke is disconnection from your worth. But now you're reconnecting. Now you're remembering. Now you're choosing differently. And everything flows from this choice. Your transformation has already begun. It began the moment something inside you said, "Yes, this is true." Now you just keep going. Keep choosing. Keep remembering. Keep returning to your worth. If this truth awakened something within you, don't stop here. Your transformation has only begun.